Good afternoon, I'm Albert Lim and I'm the owner of Woodlands, where Ethel Turner lived 130 years ago. In 2015, my wife and we migrated from Malaysia and from China and settled here in Australia. And we were looking at the houses for 2 years because we wanted to own a house that is of character. We never really thought of purchasing the house, but during the inspection, I was quite taken aback by the beauty of the house, the character of the house, the brightness of every nook and corner, and how when you enter the house, it feels homey and comfortable. I bought this house in June 2017, but before we purchased the house, I had no knowledge of Ethel Turner or what she did or who she was. So the moment I heard about Ethel Turner, I did some research, and what I did immediately after that was to ask my friends if they have heard of Ethel Turner, and most of them said no. To my surprise, they were Australians and I was not, and yet they have not heard of Ethel Turner. But during the time when I researched and wanting to find out more about her, that's when I found Tracy.
Albert contacted me to see if somehow we could work together to help raise the profile of Ethel. Ethel Turner was a prolific writer. She contributed to Sydney's most illustrious gazettes and newspapers and many literary projects.
She stood out among women during her era because she wrote Seven Little Australians when women were just assigned to the kitchen, and yet she as a young lady was able to succeed in a man's world.
Ethel was really a writer at the time that was a watershed in as far as Australian literature was concerned. When you consider that she was writing during the Victorian era, this was a time when children were meant to be seen and not heard and well behaved. And Seven Little Australians changed that because these children were iconic Australian children. They got up to mischief, they were naughty, they were real children. And I think that was why it connected with people.
The book that she wrote was true to what she experienced around her in the bush and to the everyday life that she encountered in Australia. But she was not born Australian. She was born in Britain. Then after a few years, she and her mother moved here and she assimilated into the Australian culture.
Ethel, when she first came to Sydney from England, she thought that she was going to be buried alive out here. And we have to remember that for somebody who was used to inner city living and was quite a socialite, which Ethel was, so to come out here to the bush was actually a real challenge for her in the first instance. But when she did come here, she was inspired by her surroundings. She was inspired by the bush. She was inspired by how quiet and peaceful it was, and it gave her time to think. So I certainly feel that perhaps if she hadn't have lived here, it would have been a very different book. It doesn't surprise me that she included really important historical themes in her books because she really wanted to educate people about those things. For example, in Seven Little Australians, there's a story related to an Aboriginal individual that was kept out of the original publication, the original editions, because her publisher had a great deal to do with the editing, hence the reason that it was excluded. But I think that's what I love about Ethel, is that she was not scared, to do something that was outside the boundaries of what was considered acceptable.
Mark Twain, when he visited Sydney, he said that Ethel was a very special writer because she was doing things that were beyond her time without her realizing it. And when she wrote Seven Little Australians, it was a totally new era of children literature books, even to the English.
Her writing was able to introduce Australia to the world. Her books were read by royalty, so it did actually reach quite a large audience and an illustrious audience, and into homes overseas that didn't know anything about Australia at the time.
This person is so special. She was living in an era where men ruled, where women artists were not known as artists, but hobbyists. but yet she becomes successful and write beautiful children's book. That really touched a chord in my heart because I have 4 daughters of my own. And even today, where women are very much liberated, women are still not able to have that sort of level where they are equal with men. And it is to my interest for my daughters to know how to succeed in life by learning from Ethel Turner. And as time goes by, I began to see that Ethel's works actually touched many, many lives, especially the Australian girls, as well as all girls in the world.